Do you want the truthful response to that or not?
Please, always the truth here.
I think some people think that if you've been doing it for a long time, it's kind of like 15 scripts are coming across your desk at any one time, and it's not the case. You know, Renee had a really bad diagnosis only about a year into us going out. We weren't even engaged yet. That was new. It was a challenge, and you know, we were shooting 2 episodes a day and a sharp learning curve. I know it's self-serving for somebody in the industry, and I can know it can sound like that, but it's not to see our own culture reflected back. I'm happy to have a pseudo Logie. That's fine.
Rodger Corser, welcome to the Stellar Podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now, Rodger, you have a new primetime game show coming out on Channel 9 called The Floor. How did this gig land on your radar? And I'm sure that you get offered different projects that you and ah about, or maybe you don't.
Do you want the truthful response to that or not?
Please, always the truth here.
You know, I'll answer that, but by answering this just first, is that I think some people think that if you've been doing it for a long time, it's kind of like that, what they picture, you know, the Hollywood A-list, that 15 scripts are coming across your desk at any one time, and it's not the case. You know, the industry in this country is thinned out considerably, and so you are. I won't say forced is the wrong word, but you end up broadening what you think you can do. And I think I've always been a bit of a jack of all, master at none, and willing to try new things just really out of necessity, you know, because you want a gig. And I heard about it, and things are a little quiet on the acting side, so I kind of chased it a little bit. I made some inquiries, and my agents sort of rang up and said, "Oh, we heard this was, you know, about to be produced, and who have you got on the shortlist?" And so then they were quite happy to talk about it. So I think they had some other people in mind and so forth, and we had some chats and spoke about it, and then eventually we got it. So it was definitely outside my comfort zone, but I had ventured into presenting over the last couple of years. I'd done a couple of seasons of a show called The Traders for 10, and that was a good kind of crossover because I sort of played a pseudo character in that, sort of Lord of the Manor. So you kind of used a little bit of the acting sort of skills in that. But this was presenting, and this was someone in your ear, you know, in a little earpiece, and it had much more of a live feel. You know, I mean, there's editing and so forth in it, but if you know you're playing that game in front of you, and you got the studio audience, and there's a lot going on, and you know, it's not all scripted really. There is an auto cue, and so you know, coming in off the break, there's some things to read off the screen. But you know, I'll get some suggestions in my ear about what to say, ask people, but you're just talking to people, you know, and it's talking to you, and so there's 81 contestants, and so you need to try and, for the audience says, get the audience to sort of meet these people in a very quick way and get to the root of who they are very quickly and what's interesting about them, you know. You know, it's light entertainment, so, you know, anything that's kind of funny or sort of more comedic is great. If people can laugh and, you know, have a fun moment, that's what we're sort of going for. But you have to do that sort of 81 times, you know. And then some people come back up and play their sort of second round, and you get to know them a bit more, and you sort of pick up the relationship. But that was new. It was a challenge, and you know, we were shooting 2 episodes a day, and I was you know, there was a sharp learning curve really. But it was good. I like those challenges, you know, picking up something new, and you know, you sort of feel like you haven't quite got it at the start, and then sort of about halfway through, you're sort of going, oh, I think I've got a bit more of a grasp of this. So
a really, really broad skill set there, as you say, from everything from that sort of almost live TV component to helping an audience get to know the contestants pretty quickly. But also, I would imagine you have to disarm very nervous people, because I'm guessing a lot of the contestants, it might have been their first time ever, maybe even in a TV studio, much less on TV. So is that something that you've had from working in the industry for a long time? I imagine the rapport that you build with co-stars, you often have to help put each other at ease. Or was that also a new muscle to flex?
Yeah, a little bit. Look, again, I said before, jack of all. I did a uni course in media studies, not acting. So I've always had a 360 kind of view of especially film and TV. But having said this was a new environment, so I don't know who was more nervous, me or the contestants. I don't know if I was allaying their fears because they saw the fear in my eyes in those first couple of episodes. But I definitely, I was told by the producers that I relaxed into it. We have a really good bunch though. I mean, they don't just pick anyone. You know, they pick people that are going to be good on telly.
Oh, do they? Okay, so there is good screening. Yes.
Yeah. This show, obviously, general knowledge is, you know, and how much you know about your subject and so forth. But I think it's, you know, it's when you go down to pub trivia, it's fun. You go down because it's fun. Because what's great about our show is that maybe some other quiz shows, you think, oh, well, that's for people that maybe have a great academic background and some it's more uber pop culture. Ours is everything. And you can face off, like for instance, the guy that was his specialist subject was the periodic table, you know, could face off against, you know, celebrity couples.
And what about for you? Did you come away thinking, I learned a lot of fun facts today, and then that stuff that can come up in all sorts of conversations. I love it, especially when you're a parent. It's great to be able to say, well, actually, I happen to know this about the periodic table.
I think what it taught me is don't judge a book by its cover, you know. Our younger contestants are incredible, really. And you know, think perhaps the more experience, more life experience, more knowledge maybe goes hand in hand. Some of the guys in there, I mean, barely 20, up through their 20s, extraordinary, you know, their knowledge and breadth of knowledge. And now when I say underestimate, someone maybe of my vintage, a Gen Xer might go, oh, well, you know, someone of my vintage will probably take this out because they've had more experience, you know. And it was pretty evident in the first couple of episodes that some of our star contestants were younger.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the persona. You mentioned earlier when you were in the Traders a few years ago that had a bit of a character, so drew a bit on acting. And as you said here, it's really you and you're drawing a little bit. You have done some TV presenting. I know you've done some morning show co-hosting where there's nowhere to hide in that everyone sees exactly who this person is for a few hours. So obviously you're no stranger to being you, Rodger Corser, as opposed to a character or a persona. Can you tell us what the persona we can expect to see you on the floor? And does it draw a little bit on any other game show host? So with Sale of the Centuries, they've got Tony Barber, some of the contemporaries today, Larry Emder.
Oh, I mean, you know.
Daniel.
Great Daniel, Larry Emder. I mean, if I can be half as good as those two gentlemen, I'll be a happy man. I don't know. I think like you've got a job to do, and the first thing you got to do is service that job, you know, and hopefully make it look effortless. But you know, it is that, you know, the duck on the pond with everything underneath going kind of crazy. Because as I said, you've got people in your ear, and everyone was finding their feet a little bit, you know, because there's someone there with the game manually having to go right or wrong.
Of course, yes.
You know what I mean? And it goes really, really quickly. And there's a lot of, because we're basically, it's a visual game, you know, that there's a slide that comes up and you have to name what it is or a word that's missing or so forth. And when they're answering, sometimes you're supposed to answer as quickly as you can so your clock doesn't run out is the idea. So people are spitting answers out super quick, and everyone is like on the edge a little bit, you know. And so yeah, my job is to take in what's coming in my ear, pick up what's happening from the contestants, try and pick up on some of those more social things, and if there's anything kind of funny going on, and make a little comment there, but also direct the audience in what's happening in the game, and perhaps to keep their eye on things, and also to pose to the contestants, you know, the jeopardy that might be involved because they have choices to make, whether they want to keep playing or they go back to the floor and sort of maybe hide for a little while. And so you try to draw, well, maybe if you did this, because we have a nightly prize as well, and that sort of is to encourage people to keep playing and chance their arm a little bit, you know, and push their luck a little bit. So there's a lot going on. So yeah, I don't think I thought about what sort of persona I was. Just trying to do everything, and I think you've just got to connect with people.
Now, I read that it is filmed in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Because
Which is very dangerous for me, flying me to Amsterdam, expecting me to turn up on time.
Right. Yeah, were there any missed call times?
Yeah. He's in the cafe somewhere and we can't get him out. No. We went in one night because it actually shoots out about 20, 30 minutes from Amsterdam. The Dutch are prolific in television. Right. They are format holders like John de Mol over there, Big Brother, and there's a whole bunch of formats that came from the Dutch. The Traders came from the Dutch. And they've got a Studio City out there. And so we shot it in one of those studios. And it was a well-oiled machine because they've done their own versions, but it just made everything really slick because it's a big bit of kit. It's big as a basketball court, this floor, pretty much.
Yes.
And then the lighting rigs, and we've got a camera on a rope that flies back and forth. It's a bit like a spider cam, but only the one axis, back and forth. So it was great.
I'd love to talk to you a little bit about what you touched upon, which I love, is the fact that this is also a sign of the times, that an actor like you, and we're going to sound like I'm blowing smoke, but I'm not, one of the most beloved and successful actors in Australia. You've won awards. Everyone loves you. Well, I mean, I'm sure
I actually haven't won any awards. I've been nominated a lot.
You've been nominated for so many Logies that it feels like you won them. Isn't that's legit, isn't it? I mean, we're pretty loose with the fact checking here, aren't we? I've already. I'm
happy to have a pseudo Logie. That's fine.
I think sometimes if someone like me hasn't done their proper homework and just assumed that you had won some, is often as somebody, say for Stella, has been nominated for a lot of awards over the years. Didn't mean to turn this around and make it all about Stella, but have somehow ended up here. We have often not won, which is, I mean, obviously a total travesty, just as you not winning the gold.
But sometimes you're relieved just not to have to give a speech.
Oh, like that bit. I mean, when they say the other name, you must think. It's kind of a bit
like, it's I'm glad they're up there.
Like completely, because it is.
You get enough of a fuss made about you. If you're nominated, everyone's very nice to you. You know, they'll send a car around to pick you up. They dress you in a nice, bit of kit, and there's some free hors d'oeuvres and a nice glass of champagne. Oh, it's a good night.
And you are.
And I don't want the pressure of having to, thank him. It's good.
That's right. And in this day and age, say the wrong thing and it goes viral, and you're waking up the next morning going, what?
And that can happen at the Logies, especially if it's one of the latter awards.
Exactly. That's right. And the ones that you're nominated in are at the, interesting end of the night.
You have to keep yourself nice.
End of proceedings. But the fact, as you say, that you are then exploring other opportunities, whether that is presenting on TV or hosting a game show. You've been an actor for, almost coming up to 30 years at least in terms of high-profile roles. What's the state of the Australian industry at the moment? I imagine you and so many of your peers it's never easy for an actor, is it? As you said at the start, there's an assumption everyone thinks that you've got 15 scripts piling up on your desk. So times can always be lean, whoever you are in the Australian industry. But is it tougher than ever at the moment?
I think it's the industry's just in a bit of a state of flux where it's changed from how it was. You had movies and you had broadcast television, and then along came cable, so in the Australian market you had Foxtel, which became Binge, and you'd have their one channel would do one or two shows, Love My Way, or, I did a show called Spirited with Claudia on Foxtel. But really it was just 7, 9, 10 to SBS. And now there are so many players. You think of so many players in the market, it dilutes the market. So, and I understand what's going on. So I'm not necessarily blaming the broadcasters or anything, because I get it. It's diluted. That there was X amount of revenue that they would carve up between four of them. Take ABC and SBS kind of out a little bit, and just between the three of them, and maybe Foxtel, X amount of revenue coming in, and then they could produce X amount of drama, and they were required to with a quota system, which was attached to their broadcast license. In come the disruptors, Netflix first, and all the other players that are there. The change in technology means they don't need a television license, and that's what the quotas were attached to. And so there's no requirement to. Now, someone like a Stan makes a lot of Australian content, but the others, especially Stan's an Australian company, the others aren't obliged to, and now the broadcasters don't have the means or the funds to make as much as they did, because they're sharing all the revenue with a whole bunch of other players. And what happens, and really when you think of it, people are still turning on a television and watching something, yes, now through an app, but you're turning on your TV and you're watching shows. It's the technology that's changed really only. That ritual of sitting down on your couch and watching something, yeah, you might watch it on a tablet or something else as well. But we don't have the quotas in place because of the technology change. And why is that important? And I understand for people that are not in the industry, you're like, well, not every industry is subsidised. The car industry, that fell through was subsidised for a long time. And why are you subsidised? I mean, would you exclusively only watch international news? Only CNN, only BBC? I think we need to see our own culture reflected. And it supports an industry that, is good and can make money if it's supported. And I don't begrudge multinational companies for wanting to maximise their profits for their shareholders, but you just got to put some restrictions on it. And say, if you want to come and play in our market, it was explained to me this way. It's like, if you went to a friend's dinner party, you play nice, you bring a bottle of wine. You don't come empty-handed. Mm-hmm. And that's all I think the Australian industry expects from these international players. We don't expect the world, but you're coming into our market, diluting it. And it's not a tariff we're asking for. We're not asking you just to pay a tax. We're asking you, if you've got to make some shows, a small percentage of them, reflective of a percentage of how much profit you make in this country, goes back into producing some shows and using some local talent, telling some local stories. And by the way, they just might be good as well. And you can use them in other markets. And we've proven that. Like Heartbreak High from Netflix was made by the local Netflix, huge international success, So I don't think it's a big price to pay. So yeah, it's really important. I think it's really important. And I know it's self-serving for somebody in the industry, and I can know it can sound like that, but I think for us not to see our own culture reflected back in some small way, and it's like asking for maybe 15 to 20% of what you watch is Aussie content.
What about then, Rodger, for you personally, in terms of reinvention and over the course of your career? Because you have played all sorts of characters. You've played doctors and crime bosses and heroes and obviously villains. You've played in film, in TV. You've been on stage. You always, I will always remember you playing the lead role, Rodger, in Rent, the Broadway musical. What has been your favourite aspect of your career? And in terms of that reinvention as an actor, can I ask you a little bit about that as you've gotten older, because obviously that changes the roles. Was there a time when you were like, then, now you're going to start playing the dad? I mean, the sexy dad, but the dad. Yeah. Or would you consider going back on stage, for instance?
Yeah. I mean, I've had some inquiries about perhaps going back on stage for a couple of musicals. I've got to say, Rent is definitely a standout. That group of people, we are still in contact now. We just had a reunion. And it wasn't everyone, because it's very hard to get everyone. We've unfortunately lost 2 members of that cast. Cliff and Mark, and they were both the American imports. But Fred Jones, he was an American import. He came out. He finally, after much sort of, we're badgering him online saying, when you've always promised to come back out to Australia, and it's taken him 26 years. And he finally came out, and so we all had sort of mini catch-ups in different parts of Australia. And so I saw him a couple of times. It was great. We went back to Sydney Theatre Company where we rehearsed, and went past the Theatre Royal in Sydney and caught up and had barbecues with people. But that was such, I think, the first time you do anything, and it was a big jump for me. I mean, I auditioned, no agent, auditioned on off the street pretty much, and it was kind of one of those auditions where you can't recreate it. And I've been asked by parents who have kids that are in, how did you get in the industry? And it's like, well, you don't follow my model, because I turned up and sung a song, and I didn't know what I was going to sing. I remember sitting next to I say young girl, now would have been my age, so 20-something girl, and she had her own pianist, and she'd been practicing all the songs, and she knew the songs backwards, every song, and she went out and she was like, oh, what are you going to sing? And I had my guitar with me and said, I don't know yet. And she was mortified. She's like, what do you mean you don't know? You're not even taking this seriously. I said, well, I play in bands. I play in original bands and cover bands, and I'll just ask them what they want to hear. So I was a bit dead cash. But I was also a little bit guarded. I was like, if I smell that they're taking the mickey out of me, I'm going to walk. So I was a little bit guarded. So I got out there, and it was outside. It was on Fitzroy Street, St Kilda, at the POW, the Prince of Wales Hotel. There's like a balcony out there. So no reverb, trams dinging past. It's the worst environment for a singer.
You're doing a singing audition outside?
Yeah, and so it was on this sort of rooftop thing, and they had a pianist there. So no, I'll just play. And I closed my eyes and just started singing an acoustic version of it was a grunge song. And I sort of opened one eye, and I could see them smirking, and I just went, right. And I started, right, you can all get stuffed. You're laughing at me. And they went, no. What they thought was hilarious was that the lead characters, one of the lead characters' names is Rodger, and he plays the guitar, and he has a bit of an attitude. And that's exactly how I presented. And they were kind of laughing at Innsmouth, the character.
You didn't know that at this point?
No, I sort of knew a little bit about the show, but this is sort of, the internet was around. I think I may have had a Hotmail account, you know what I mean?
I had a Hotmail account at that point.
But you weren't, you couldn't get video or, that was worth anything.
That's right.
So you could get some information and some photos and stuff. I knew a little bit about it, but they sort of went, no, don't leave. They said, come with us, and it's sort of through a hallway, and then you walked into sort of not a ballroom, but like the gig room, the band room, and then it's like something out of a Hollywood movie, and it's like, there's the long table with like 7 people sitting there.
You went straight into that?
Yeah, and it was Michael Greif, who was the Broadway director, and they had some Broadway producers, and then the Australian producers, Australian choreographers, Australian musical director, American musical director. It was just 7 or 8 people. And you're like, okay, not in Kansas anymore, And
what did you sing there? Did you have
to
sing
they did the same thing again a little bit. And they said, great. Go away and learn one of the songs. And they gave me like a tape deck and like a Walkman. And I was like, I'm not gonna be quick at picking this up. And I kind of botched it. I came back out 15 minutes later trying to sing a few lines from the actual show, but I think the irony of Rodger walking in and was enough to say, well, we can't let this opportunity go.
As you say, you haven't done a musical since, but a couple have been offered to you. Is it something that you would revisit?
Yeah. I'd have to get the voice back. It's not where it was, and also I think I'm at the disadvantage of knowing some really amazing singers. It's Renee, my wife, just had her 50th, and we had an incredible do, and it was a day party. But all she wanted was a band, because she's from musical theatre. She was fantastic. So she Chicago and Saturday Night Fever. So that's where I met her, when she was doing Saturday Night Fever. So she just wanted a band, and so I rang a friend of ours who is a great muso and is a musical director, and he's currently in the Australian Idol band. I think he's the musical director there, Daryl Beaton. I said, Daryl, what we wanted him to maybe get a band together. And so he put me onto some guys, and they were phenomenal. And people like an incredible band. And then Brenny Stevens, who I did rent with, and she got up and sang, and Nat Bass got up and sang, and my daughter Zippy got up and sang, and so it was incredible.
You've mentioned your wife Renee, and you have 3 children together, and you mentioned your older daughter who you stopped to help out on the way here.
Yeah.
So I can't believe she's in her early 20s now. Now, of course, she is the child of entertainers, so yourself and her mum Christine Anu, who of course was in Rent as well. How do you feel about the next generation coming through and potentially going into the same industry and facing all of the amazing experiences that you've had, but also the flip side that we've talked about, the lack of job security and stability?
Yeah, job security. I think there's the pressure for not only performers but everyone through. I mean, we can unpack the whole social media thing. That would take forever, but it's a different kind of pressure. Like you have to. It started to come in like a few years ago when people would do behind the scenes in an audition, and I would say, no, I won't go to the audition because I felt like you don't get to see behind the curtain. We make our mistakes, and then what you see on opening night is after 4 or 5 weeks of ironing out all the bugs, trying really hard, having a safe space to fail, and then getting it right, and you see a polished performance, and hopefully you go, wow, that seemed effortless, and it wasn't, but you put all that hard work in. I don't like the behind the scenes things, but people are forced to show all of themselves all the time, a la the Kardashians, because that's kind of what's expected, and they're sort of expected to already come to a show, or if you're pushing your own music or whatever it is, already with 50,000 followers on a platform. People are talking about how people are getting cast. People are always cast because of their profile, sure, but you all need to start somewhere. But some people are, when it should only go on talent because no one's got a profile and they're only 18, that you should pick probably the person that's worked the hardest or with the right for the role. But someone with 150,000 Instagram followers is getting the role because they're going to help promote the show in some way. And you're going, are they though? How many of those 150 are going to come to the show? But that's where it's tough, I think. And so then they're forced to play that game. So I think there's an added pressure for younger performers these days to already be something. And also, we made mistakes. You know what it's like as Gen X. We made mistakes. It may have been on a 35mm camera in Instamatic somewhere, but that's about it. We made mistakes. Our friends knew about it. We went, oh, won't do that again. No one else knows about it. Now there's a record of it. And the worst thing is if something comes back to haunt someone and they were 16 or 17 years old and they were dumb and they would never do that again, but they don't get a chance to grow. And people want to, highlight the worst moment. And no one is their worst moment. No one's their best moment either.
And no one is the one person.
Yeah.
And none of us are who we were in our early 20s.
So I think there's that pressure for younger performers. But as I said, the talent, the one thing maybe that, YouTube and having, the best all out there, it does push a certain type of person on to greater and greater things. So, the flip side, the positive side of that is you've got people who are ridiculously talented, like technically, like with singers I'm talking about. And even, I've picked the guitar up and, started writing music and recording music again and got back into the guitar, and I'm looking at some young guitar players and they're just doing ridiculous things and they're like 18 years old. And I think it's because they've been pushed by other people via those platforms.
Yes,
so it has actually... It has, because they're exposed to everything, so much more than just the guitar teacher they get round the corner. There's so many different styles and they're going, oh, wow, that's possible. And they learn that a lot earlier. So there's a flip side to it.
I also want to ask you about your wife, Renee. She actually launched a health and wellness business last year. So when we talk about, a couple of things, there are people pivoting and reinvention, but also drawing on the things that you've been through in your life. And she's had very serious health issues in the past. Yeah. Can I just ask you a little bit about that business and how that's been?
Yeah, I'm really proud of her. She's worked really, really hard. She's tried to find her thing for a little while, and Renee had a really bad diagnosis only about a year into us going out. We weren't even engaged yet, and she was told that she had small cell carcinoma, and it was a dire diagnosis. She basically said you'll have to have a hysterectomy straight away, and you're lucky if you'll last 3 or 4 years. And if I can give anyone advice, if they have anything similar, you get a second opinion, because Renee, and thank God her mum was by her side. I was working in a little cafe, and her mum sort of went, yeah, well, we're going to go and seek out something else, because that's fairly drastic, advice to take. And then, the second doctor sort of went, let's go slowly. That's exactly right. We'll get to the bottom of this. But she had to go through several procedures, and more than anything, the physical thing, it was the mental thing. Shot her confidence, and it changed her trajectory. We'd met, and she was a lead in Saturday Night Fever, and pretty much didn't do a major music. Hasn't done one since. He's done some other smaller song and dance kind of projects, but fertility became at the forefront. She's like, I've got to have my babies now. So we struggled with that a little bit anyway, because she just changed physically, not because of the illness. It was mentally. She dropped weight, and the stress and everything, and so that sent her off on a journey about health. And dancers already know their bodies quite well. They're in touch with their bodies and how they're feeling, and because they're athletes. So kids, our kids never slept as well, ever slept, and so we went straight into the next one, and they would never sleep. And so I'd be away on jobs, and Renee would be tired and sleep, and so things about hormones and cortisols and all these things and stress and how it just affects your body she'd been through it, and she knew. She can empathise with people and she tried everything. She tried, she's tried naturopaths, and she's tried Western medicine, she tried Chinese herbs, and she tried all of it, meditation and all that. And she finally found something that kind of worked for her, and also the experience of what she'd been through. So she started her health and wellness website and business, Rodger Corser Wellness, check it out. And she's focusing on something that she's passionate about, and that's menopausal and perimenopausal women. And I said, oh, you're keeping it broad? She's like, no, I think I'm just going to keep it to what I am passionate about. It's women, and all her girlfriends are going through that kind of stage themselves. And so she's really enjoying helping people. She's kind of found her calling again. And she's also teaching, instructing fitness as well. So she's sort of, Pilates instructing and doing some other things as well. So, but she, I keep saying, the hour consults, don't give them 2.5 hours.
Right.
Get them to rebook.
She's very generous.
Get them to rebook. But I think when you find your passion, people just light up when they find their passion, and you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because you enjoy what that pursuit is, and she just enjoys helping people.
Well, my final question then is just a little bit about, in terms of the career and the way that it has changed for you, and then also for Renee, is about the balance and the juggle, because as a society, as journalists, we're always asking women how they juggle it. And I've a few times, Rodger, you've mentioned things like when Renee got her diagnosis and things where you were away for work. And I would love to ask you about balancing that at this point in your life. Just earlier this month, Ben Affleck gave a big interview, and he actually, I'm not sure if you read it, but he talked about how there were times in his career as a director, Oscar-nominated director. I don't think he won either, but I could get my facts wrong and say that he won. And how that was the pinnacle of his professional career, but he just felt he missed out on so much. And so what he's doing at the moment is he's working in roles where he's sort of home in the afternoon. And I just thought it was so refreshing to hear a father and a man talk about that. Can I ask you a little bit about that and how you feel that balance has worked out for you as this reinvention and the roles and the nature of the work has changed for you?
Well, I've probably been home too much lately because I think there can be a thing with seeing too much of each other and everyone going, oh, there's you again. I think Renee's like, can you please go and get a job? Because he's like, because I think what's funny is you both have your own little systems. Yes, you've got a family dynamic, and you know that from family to family things change. But you just have your own little ways of doing things. And where we clash is in the kitchen. A little bit, oh, you're putting that on first, are you? Interesting. Or someone going, tasting someone else's sauce and going, yeah, no salt. That's a choice, or whatever. So we have that. So sometimes a little separation is good. Because the acting work's been a bit slow, I have been at home a lot. So I have been able to go to footy training and help and split in Dad's taxi. But Renee then gets to go and teach a 6 a.m. fitness class, and I've got a little bit to make up there because there were years where, I was working. We had jobs in Melbourne. We had a flat in Melbourne, and we also had a small place in Sydney. And we were sort of between the two. And then Nay would have the kids really young, and I'd be down finishing a show, and I'd only come up on the weekends and so forth. So she's had to put her things on the back burner for so long. So, sometimes you want work, and you can be in the middle of it going, oh God, where's the work gone? But when you step back and after a couple of years, when you're less stressed about that because work's come back, and you go, well, aren't I lucky that I actually had that, and it let your other partner, everything kind of works out for a reason a little bit. So I got to have those moments with the kids, and then, your partner gets to go and study or do something else. So yeah, it's she's still done the majority by far, but I've been glad that I've been home over the last couple of years to sort of help out as well.
Apart from the odd moment in the kitchen.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're putting that on first, are you? Rodger Corser, it has been an absolute delight to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time today. You can see Rodger on the floor. It premieres Monday, 28th of April on Channel 9 and 9 Now. Thanks again, Rodger.
Thank you.